Well, let's check out whatever Netanyahu's currently up to.
Still living. Hamas hasn't commented. Gaza City is now squarely in Israel's crosshairs. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in the midst of calling up 60,000 reservists for a full ground assault on the city, claiming it is the last remaining holdout of Hamas.
Let me just restart this video just in case any fuck shit happening.
This morning, Israel claims to have killed in Gaza City the long-serving spokesman for Hamas. Abu Obaida was one of the most senior Hamas officials still living.
There we go.
Hamas hasn't commented. Gaza City is now squarely in Israel's crosshairs. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in the midst of calling up 60,000 reservists for a full ground assault on the city, claiming it is the last remaining holdout of Hamas. Last night, during a 6-hour cabinet meeting, Netanyahu announced the offensive is still a go, without even discussing a ceasefire that Hamas says it has agreed to.
That's like a play out of a Trump book. He's got the National Guard. Now he's sitting there, got 60,000 troops coming. Ooh, a whole lot of people.
According to Israeli media.
I think having trouble.
Up to 1 million people remain in Gaza City, and the few international aid groups still working there say more Palestinians are arriving every day as they try to escape advancing Israeli troops. International agencies say Gaza City is already facing a level 5 famine, the highest level. Ala Jawad is returning to her tent.
Yeah, we're gonna have to go over what's the other levels. Level 5. How many levels is it? Is that the highest level?
With her son after they battled crowds to get some rice from a food kitchen, describing it as humiliating and insufficient. If they have food, we eat. Otherwise, we don't. My youngest son cries all day from hunger, she says.
He don't know nothing about Hamas.
Opposition to the war and Netanyahu appear to be growing in Israel. Weekly protests against Netanyahu have swelled from a few.
Trump's legacy crumbles as the Gazan war persists. That's exactly how we feel. I voted for Trump specifically to stop this war because I thought the Democrats was giving them everything, and I wanted Trump to stop it. Turns out they ain't stopping it either.
2,000 in Tel Aviv to several 100,000 2 weeks ago. Gil Dickman's cousin, Carmel, was executed by Hamas a year ago. Dickman accuses Netanyahu of refusing a deal that could have set her free and says the war is now doing harm to both Israel and Jews worldwide.
Netanyahu and his war right now, they're ruining the Israeli state and the Israeli idea, the moral of the Jewish nation, of the Jewish people all over the world.
He's saying the Jewish people won't have that moral high ground. Like, oh, we Jewish people, we came from the Holocaust. 6 million of us and more was killed. Like now it's like, look, but you about to kill a couple million of these people too. So.
And as for what could come next for Gaza, much of which is already in ruins, President Trump has proposed, quite controversially, that the United States take ownership of Gaza, turn it into a business venture, something he called a Riviera. He even posted an AI video showing what it might look like. Well, apparently the idea is not dead. The Washington Post
They got Elon with the Kim Jong-un cut.
Reports that the Trump administration has reviewed a detailed plan to develop this Riviera economically under U.S. leadership and to move all of the 2 million Gazans currently residing there and to move them to an undisclosed location, compensating them with $5,000 and digital tokens for their land.
Oh, that's sick. That's sick. My president ain't said that. Come
Administration has not responded to our request for comment. Laura?
Richard, thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching. And don't forget, you can catch the Today Show every...
Oh, I know Trump ain't said that. That's stupid. $5,000. Did he even say 1,000? I'm assuming he said 1,000. That's crazy. You think this is Native Americans when they came here? Let me see. Pierce Morgan. Pierce is coming back around to the good side. He was a little bit on Israel's side, like, And
so these Palestinians who claim that
harder.
It's going to continue even if they let go of the hostages and lay down their arms, try us. Free the hostages and test us. Why don't you test us?
Mehdi, there's been a job opening. Israel finally got rid of Abu Ubaidah.
They should.
Very prolific and well-to-do Hamas.
You've really got to get better with your Hamas propaganda. You're a racist,
small man.
Genocidal, war criminal.
See, I open these already and have them ready for when I come up here, so sometimes they've been sitting too long. You got to refresh them.
So these Palestinians
if anybody
who claim
can't
that it's going to continue even if they let go of the...
If anybody can't see that this is a fucking genocide now and this don't have nothing to do with war, I think the reason why the Hamas that's left don't release the hostages because they haven't been told to. Their higher people are they're otherwhere. They're not in Gaza. They're across the nation in Europe and Egypt, Lebanon, whatever. Their leadership is sitting there collecting money. And then Yahoo like, yo, keep this going on. Like, we got to keep this fight. I got to keep raking this money because if it stopped, the money stopped going to y'all, I'm going to be arrested. So they keeping the hostages that they got left. Otherwise, they would release them and say, look, our people are starving. Let us feed our people. We don't got no more of your hostage. And then Netanyahu and them wouldn't have no reason. But they keep saying, hey, they got the hostage. Hey, they got one hostage. Hey, even a hostage's family, like, yo, the people family, like, we don't want that no more. Not in our people name, but they still using it as a reason. But the moment this war stopped, Netanyahu goes to jail. So let's see.
Hostages and lay down their arms, try us. Free the hostages and test us. Why don't you test us?
Mehdi, there's been a job opening. Israel finally got rid of Abu Ubaidah. Very prolific and well-to-do Hamas.
You've really got to get better with your Hamas propaganda. You're a racist,
small man.
Genocidal, war criminal. Well, you're trying to put a target on me?
Crazy.
Trying to put a target on me.
Mehdi and others aren't happy with the fact that Israel stubbornly, annoyingly is able to withstand the pressure campaigns by biased and corrupt UN organizations.
Gaslighting. I can't believe that, 23 months into this, I'm still having to come on these shows and fact-check this kind of nonsense propaganda. You're part of an Israeli military.
And a proud one.
International Association of Genocide Scholars have said is a genocide. You're part of a military. You're part of a military that's being investigated. Jonathan, we're on Piers Morgan. I get to speak. We're not in Gaza. You don't get to kill me as a journalist.
Some of the world's leading genocide scholars passed a resolution this week declaring what many of Israel's critics have argued for months, that Israel's war in Gaza is genocidal. With the exception of the US, Israel's allies are rushing to distance themselves from the ongoing escalation in the war. The UK's Foreign Secretary...
That's how crazy our politicians are. They went there and, voted. Nah, we don't see no genocide.
...just expressed outrage at ongoing restrictions on aid after the UN's declaration that Gaza is enduring a, quote, man-made famine. Benjamin Netanyahu now presides over a government, a war cabinet and a country which is increasingly divided over the country's strategy and its impact on the fate of the remaining Israeli hostages. This summer, he's embarked on a tour
They're not really
of conservative
divided.
US podcasts
They know
in
what
an
they
attempt
want.
to win back public support. Netanyahu continues to refuse invitations to appear on Uncensored again, or indeed to appear on any other critical media. When Naftali Bennett is a former Israeli Prime Minister, polls continue to indicate that a Bennett-led coalition would defeat Netanyahu in an election, and he joins me again now. Naftali Bennett, welcome back to Uncensored. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Pierce.
I've just been off for a couple of weeks, and even in that time, so much is going on with this war. But what appears to be very increasingly evident is that there's a real difference of opinion internally in Israel between Israeli citizens and the government, between the IDF and the government, between the families of the hostages and the government. What is your sense here about what is going on internally in Israel?
Well, Israel is a very open society full of debates, and there's a huge debate of the sequence. Should we strive for a deal bringing home the hostages, and then at a later date go on and destroy Hamas, while the government says that if you cut a deal now, you'll never be able to later on destroy Hamas. So there's a big strategic and tactical discussion. However, I would say that there's consensus in Israel as to the two main objectives, which are to bring home the 48 hostages that are in the dungeons and tunnels of Hamas, and to eradicate Hamas so they can't conduct another October 7th attack that they're saying that they want to do the moment they can.
This report has come from the leading association of genocide scholars in the world, declaring that Israel's committing genocide in Gaza. What is your response to that?
He ain't got one.
It's quite unbelievable. I mean, it's anything but that. Israel has no intent in that area. It's Hamas who has a genocidal approach towards the Jews and towards Israel. They explicitly say they want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth, and Israel says all we want to do is live. That's basically the competing claims. We have no
Israel says we want to wipe you off the earth.
To occupy Gaza, to live in Gaza. If it were up to us, let the Gazans live their peaceful life. Problem is they don't want to do that, and Hamas wants to attack us and kill us again and again. So that's the fundamental problem. The fact that there are some scholars who say the most crazy things doesn't make it true. I mean, there were periods in the history of the world that the leading scholars said that the world is flat. It didn't make the world flat. It just made them wrong and look stupid later on.
But you have a number of these scholars who are part of this body, which is widely recognized as the most eminent when it comes to the study of genocide. A number of them are Holocaust experts, and they've specified a number of things that they believe Israel is doing, which constitute genocide and war crimes and crimes against humanity. Declaration notes the widespread attacks on both the personnel and facilities needed for survival, including in healthcare, aid and educational sectors. 50,000 children killed or injured by Israel, as highlighted by UN organization UNICEF, which impacts the ability.
50,000 children have died. And they want you to care about October 7th. 50,000 children.
Of Palestinians in Gaza to survive as a group and regenerate, and the support amongst Israeli leaders, vocal support, for the forced expulsion of all Palestinians from Gaza, alongside Israel's near total demolition of housing in the territory. You know, the problem, it seems to me, Naftali Bennett here, is that for all that I have absolutely consistently said Israel had a right to defend itself from Hamas, for all that it's indisputable that they themselves are genocidal, both in their intent and the actions that they have been committing on things like October the 7th and on other occasions. There's no doubt they want to destroy Israel. But the point of being, as Israel's always proudly positioned itself, is that you don't descend to the level of your enemy. You don't then behave in a way that many people, including inside Israel, are now beginning to see or say they see as genocidal itself.
Exactly.
And surely, as a proud Israeli yourself who's led the country as Prime Minister, you must be getting concerned that so many historic and traditional allies of Israel, including the UK, France, Germany, and others, are all now lining up to be severely critical of the strategy of this current Israeli government.
Took them way too long.
Well, you've laid down quite a few claims, and I want to respond to them. First of all, if Israel had any intent in genocide, man, we'd be the most incompetent genociders in history, because with 63,000 people dead after 2 years and a ratio of 2 to 1 between civilians and militants, that's a very poor record. We could, if that were our intent, the cost of a kilogram of flour today wouldn't.
He just tried to say that they're pretty good at killing. So for every 2 Hamas fighters they get, they kill 1 civilian, and he think that's acceptable. So hey, if we killed 50,000 kids because we killed 100 Hamas people, Hamas militants. Is that acceptable? But one Israeli child life is worth the whole war. But 50,000 is worth 2 to 1 for the Palestinians.
Be $2.7 in Gaza, which is even cheaper than in Israel. So, I can walk you through all of it. The fundamental point here is that Hamas turned the entire location of Gaza, the houses, the hospitals, the schools, into the infrastructure of terror. There's almost no school in Gaza that doesn't have terror tunnels under it, that doesn't have rockets in it. So they made a very deliberate decision to turn all of Gaza into a war zone, and these are the results. Having said that, we do bend over backward to reduce as much as we can, but war is a really bad thing. This whole thing could go away in a second if Hamas laid down its arms, released the hostages. It would go away. There's no other genocide. Let me finish this. Okay. Hold on, let me finish this. Okay. I want to make a point. If during the Shoah, the Holocaust, was there anything the Jews...
They put the kids, saving kids last. Like, yeah, we really did good. So if they kill 100,000 kids, as long as they kill 300,000 Hamas militants, is good. 2 to 1.
Could do to stop Hitler? Could they say, we do X and Y? So there's no connection here. Here, it's them wanting to kill us. The moment they lay down their arms, the moment they let go the hostages, the war ends.
Yeah, but you see, that's where I have an issue with this, because I've heard this a lot now from people on the Israeli side who come on the show. And yet, at the same time, you have people like Smodrich and Ben-Gvir in the government very openly talking about expelling all Palestinians from Gaza. And if they had their way from the West Bank, we had this leaked report
What's up?
in the Washington Post last week about a Gaza Riviera plan, which would involve the temporary relocation of all of Gaza's 2 million population, which many people just view as blatant ethnic cleansing. So you've got all this going on at the same time, which makes people who are on the Palestinian side say, well, this isn't ending if the hostages get released. It's just the start of a new hell. The new hell being...
I have an idea.
Being the expulsion of 2 million Palestinians.
Okay, so these Palestinians who claimed that it's going to continue even if they let go of the hostages and lay down their arms, try us.
Well, I agree with you.
Lay down your arms.
I agree with you.
Free the hostages.
Yeah.
That's the best thing he said. Try it. Why not? Unfortunately, Netanyahu and his government are paying the Hamas leaders to keep these hostages at the detriment of their own people.
And test us. Why don't you test us?
I agree, but
it's nonsense.
No,
it's nonsense.
I agree that they should do that. However,
too.
I do not agree that where we are now in reality in Gaza, 75% of it's been destroyed. There is nowhere for these people to go back to their homes and live. Everyone knows that. And when you have senior members of the government, of the cabinet, talking brazenly about kicking all the Palestinians out and taking it over, you must understand that people are looking for the day after the release of all hostages and the supposed end of the war and thinking, well, what happens to the Palestinian people at the end of this? Not Hamas, that no one has any sympathy for, but what happens to them? Now, everybody knows how much I enjoy my tea, and I'm very happy to say that today's show is sponsored by Peaks.
But then the rebuilding starts. As new buildings emerge, they can vacate them, and then we have a demilitarized and future for Gaza. I hope it would be good. Ultimately, it's their choice. If they choose to go down the terror route like they did in the past 20 years, that we can't deal with that, and we'd have to fight again. But if they choose a peaceful route, they have a beautiful country and future there.
I guess it's all of them.
I just want to, at the end,
most of them, he's saying,
an ongoing rumbling story about Jeffrey Epstein and whether he had connections or was employed by Mossad. You've spoken about this before. The rumour mill continues about this. You were a former Israeli Prime Minister. The Mossad reported directly to you. How certain can you be that there was no link at all with Jeffrey Epstein?
100%.
That's good. That's good.
Would you tell me anyway?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't sit here and tell. Let me tell you something. I was prime minister. I wasn't prime minister during that period. It's not my responsibility. I didn't have to jump into this. But when I hear my country being smeared by these really anti-Semitic claims that supposedly the Mossad
everything is anti-Semitic,
runs these sort of rings or whatever. So you know what I did? I called up the Mossad chiefs from that period and I asked them point blank. I called up another prime minister and asked them point blank. The answer is no. I'll just tell you that since the mid-'80s, we had a huge, the Pollard affair, which was a huge disaster for Israel, where Israel did have one spy in the United States. Since then, it's Israel's policy to not have any espionage going on American soil. So this is utter nonsense. We don't do that sort of thing. Okay. Certainly not in the United States.
Okay.
I don't think Israel has any assets here.
Bennett, I appreciate you coming back on Uncensored. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Piers.
Well, to debate the ongoing situation in Gaza and to react to that interview, I'm joined by Mehdi Hassan, the CEO.
I mean, what's my reaction going to be other than to say more of the same? Just so many lies, demonstrable lies. You challenged them on a few of them. This idea that the war ends tomorrow if the hostages are released has been is a nonsense proposition that a lot of Israeli military officials no longer.
But it's easy to disprove. Release the hostages. Then call them fucking liars.
Believe in. The deal is on the table. Hamas has now accepted Netanyahu's terms of a partial release deal, which they didn't want to accept. But the Israelis said that was our idea. And now Israel's own military chief of staff, Piers, is telling Netanyahu, take the deal. If you carry on with this war, it doesn't make the hostages any safe. That's what the Israeli military chief of staff is saying. We know that time and time again, there has been an option to end this war, have a complete hostage release, have a permanent ceasefire, not a temporary one, and yet the Israelis don't want to do it. Netanyahu has made it very clear, if they release the hostages, we're still going into Gaza City. We're still taking this over. As you pointed out, Smotrich and many other ministers have said that it doesn't matter, the hostages are not the priority. Taking back Gaza, destroying Gaza, cleansing...
Is a like a big joker, is a card that they can pull out at any time. Like, oh, why you still here? Well, they still got hostages. Like, they could go for any reason, but it just look good. Well, they still got us. They got 40-something of us. We got to do it for them. You can't argue against it almost.
In Gaza, to quote the Bezalel Smotrich, the finance minister of Israel, that is the goal. So many other lies he mentioned. He talked about a 2-to-1 civilian to combatant ratio. Not true. Israel's own military intelligence database last month, it was leaked, showing that 5 out of every 6 Palestinians they kill are civilians. One of the highest civilian death rates.
5 out of 6 is crazy. He said 2 for 1, and I thought that was crazy. 5 out of 6? Oh, my God.
In the modern warfare, you have to go back to Rwanda, Piers, in the 1990s to find a death rate that high for civilians. It's one of the reasons why people are saying this is a genocide. As you said at the start of this segment, the International Association for Genocide Scholars passed a resolution on Monday saying that what Israel is doing in Gaza meets the legal definition of a genocide. Only 1 in 3 Americans doesn't think it's a genocide. The IPC says it's a famine, genocide. We need to stop the gaslighting.
Jonathan Conrick, welcome back to Uncensored. I don't disagree that Hamas should release all the hostages. Of course they should. Shouldn't have taken them to start with. But I vehemently disagree with Naftali Bennett's framing that simply ends everything, because nobody seriously believes that is the case for the reasons that Mehdi just articulated.
Yeah, hello, Piers. Good to see you again or hear you. Well, whether you believe it or not is maybe important, but at the end of the day, I very much believe in that as well. And I think that it's very simple to go back to the situation on October the 6th and take stock of the situation then. There were no Israeli soldiers fighting in Gaza, and there was no famine or any of the other falsehoods that and in that Well, he represents an electorate, democratically elected, but he represents an electorate which is on the extreme sides of Israeli politics. I perhaps shouldn't belittle and call them fringe, but it is an extreme part of Israeli society. But if you look at what other parts, the majority, if you look at what hundreds of thousands of Israelis, left, right, and center, are out demonstrating and saying is, we want our hostages back, we want the war to end, and the moment we get our hostages back, then the war ends. And another very important thing, which of course Mehdi represented very poorly, was that there is no deal for all of the hostages. The current waiting is for Hamas to say, okay, we agree to hand over all of the hostages. Currently, what we have on the table is 10 live hostages and half of the murdered hostages, and that isn't good enough. We don't want Hamas to have any live hostages that they can have, because that means that the war continues.
It sounds like they could turn them over and they'll just disagree to what the number's supposed to be.
That means that the suffering will continue, and that is not what we want.
Okay, Mehdi.
I can't believe that, 23 months into this, I'm still having to come on these shows and fact-check this kind of nonsense propaganda from pro-Israel people. As you pointed out,
in a position to fact-check.
They are on the record. Orit Strouk. They are on... Yeah, I can actually fact-check. Let's give some facts. Bezalel Smotrich has said very clearly the hostages are not the priority.
You're not the representative of
the
fact,
settlements minister.
Hassan.
Can I speak without being interrupted?
Let him speak, Jonathan. Jonathan, he
you
was
had a chance for your propaganda. I didn't interrupt you. I will interrupt you for the next 20 minutes.
Jonathan, he allowed you to speak without interruption. Let Mehdi do the same.
These men get petty. Fine.
You can come back in and lie again in a moment. I'll give the facts to the viewers. The finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, said very clearly that the hostages are not the priority. Ben-Gvir has said a similar line. Orit Strouk, the settlements minister, said recently, we have to go into every area, even if the hostages die, even if they're unsafe, we have to do it. They have made that very clear. Gallant, the former defense minister, said Netanyahu was sacrificing the hostages. The hostages' families went to the homes of the Israeli cabinet just 9 days ago. They protested outside the government's homes and said, you are sacrificing our children on the altar of eternal war. Those are the words of the hostages' families, not the former IDF spokesman, Piers, who you've brought on to lie on behalf of the Israeli military. So many lies he told there in that statement that he just gave this long rant. He doesn't want me to speak now, obviously, because the fact checks will hurt him. Again and again, they have said the hostages are not the priority. And this idea of fringe figures, as you said, Piers, Bezalel Smotrich is the finance minister. He said in May of this year, we are disassembling Gaza. We are turning it into piles of rubble. We are destroying the Gaza Strip. We are there to conquer, cleanse and remain. Those are the words of Smotrich. By the way, on the same day, Piers, Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, put out a tweet saying, Bezalel, you have spoken the truth. You show leadership. So this is the entire government. It's not just the entire government. It's the country. A majority of Israelis say they want Palestinians expelled from the Gaza Strip, according to every poll. This is not a fringe view. This is the Israeli government. This is Israeli society. And for Jonathan to say, I'm in the Hamas camp, come on, Jonathan, get some new lines. I'm not in the Hamas camp. I've never defended Hamas on this show once. Piers knows that. Although you come on...
This is stupid. Like, I don't know many people who don't think that this is just a senseless war now. No matter what they did, no matter... I know that it was sad they killed a couple hundred people, but to just fucking level the whole city, they took out every little bit of... Any kind of school, hospitals, any learning centers was all taken out. There's nothing there. And you're just going to send these people back? What?
Show to defend an Israeli military you were part of and spokesman for. You were part of an Israeli military that's being investigated at the ICJ for genocide. You're part of an Israeli military that was indicted at the International Criminal Court for war crimes and crimes against humanity. You're part of an Israeli military that the International Association of Genocide Scholars have said is a genocide. You're part of a military. You're part of a military that's being investigated by international courts. You're part of a military.
Well, I think, okay, hang on, let me jump in.
Hold on, I'm finishing my point, Piers.
Jonathan, let him finish and I'll come to you.
You're part of a military that has been investigated for sexual violence and rape again. Happened on your wall. The UN says is sexual and gender.
Let me ask Jonathan a question. Okay, Jonathan, hang on,
Donald. Jonathan.
Okay, let me ask Jonathan an IDF question.
Bombed a hospital.
Let me ask Jonathan.
Only a sociopath would defend that.
All right, let me ask Jonathan a question, which is, as a former IDF man and spokesman, it is reported that behind the closed-door overnight meeting, IDF's Chief of Staff, Major General Ayel Zamir, vehemently opposed a Gaza City takeover, which he has repeatedly warned would endanger the lives of his soldiers and the remaining hostages held by Hamas. That was the Times of Israel reporting that. Are you not concerned as a former IDF man that the guy who's the Chief of Staff of the IDF right now thinks this is a disastrous policy in the making?
Yeah, so this is the first time in the program that we're actually talking something that's grounded somewhere close to facts, not all of the nonsense that Mehdi was spewing out. And by the way, I'll answer the question, Piers, but by the way, Mehdi,
I quoted
Mehdi.
Deal with the Smotrich quote.
No, you've been misrepresenting, cherry-picking.
No, don't talk over each other, Mehdi. Let Jonathan
cherry-picking anything.
Let him answer my question.
We conquer, cleanse, and remain in Gaza. No, that's the factual quote.
Right, please let him answer my question.
Which Netanyahu agreed with.
All right, Jonathan, answer my question, please.
I'll answer the question. So, Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir is an excellent officer. He's the Chief of Staff of the IDF, and he's been leading the IDF with quite significant successes against Hezbollah, against the Iranians, and he is leading the IDF in our war, our very just war against Hamas. I'm very happy that there's a debate and that's an ongoing discussion between the military echelon and the democratically elected echelon in Israel. I'm not so happy that it's out in the open, but I am aware that it's happening. And I would say that what I read of the reported statements, which I have from pretty reliable sources that they're more or less accurate, maybe not really the tone and the intensity, but a lot of it is accurate. What I read is that the military, very correctly, is asking of the government, what is the end state here? And government, please tell me what you intend for things to happen once we actually go in and fight Hamas and kill them in their tunnels and take out the remaining parts of the leadership and actually get the military part of the job.
What they want is for them to go move in, and it's a bunch of Israeli encampments and settlements, and they spread the state.
Job done. And I think that's a very good point made by the IDF, because that is clarity that is needed. And until that is said and stipulated by the government, I think that it's good that the IDF, as a military in a democracy, is telling the elected democratic leadership that, well, I will execute the orders that you give me. Here are the consequences, and I wish for you to tell me what the desired strategic end state is. And that's exactly what a military is supposed to do in combat. And I think that now the ball is in the court of the government, where they will have to stipulate clearly and to a certain extent persuade the military and everybody serving.
Well, again, it's been reported.
What exactly the end goal is.
All right, it's been reported again by the Times of Israel.
Killing everybody.
During a 6-hour Israeli Security Cabinet hearing last night, that Netanyahu rejected the general's push to hold a vote over the current ceasefire deal on the table, which could see half of living hostages freed and lay the groundwork for a permanent end to the war. Now, Mehdi, what is also emerging is that there is a belief by Netanyahu that the reason he is being so gung-ho about continuing with this is that President Trump has urged him to finish the war in Gaza with full force. What should we read into that?
That's bad.
Yeah, I think we should read into that Donald Trump is 100% behind Netanyahu, as some of us warned he would be. I think there were some people who thought that there would be some daylight between Trump and Netanyahu, that Trump would somehow be better on Gaza than Biden and Harris were. And that's, as I've told you before, Piers, your pal Donald is fluent.
I fucking did.
On the ethnic cleansing, the ridiculous Gaza Riviera plan, allegedly involving Tony Blair and Jared Kushner at the White House, outrageous open plans for ethnic cleansing, all signed off on by Donald Trump, who said earlier this year that Palestinians will have to leave Gaza and not come back, which is the definition of ethnic cleansing. That is what Israel and the American government are planning and cooking up for the people of Gaza. It's why the world has now turned belatedly against Israel and on this genocide, because it's so brazen what they're doing in terms of the man-made famine, in terms of the ethnic cleansing, all of this stuff. And, you know, the hostage canard keeps being put forward. Jonathan said earlier, oh, it's a partial deal. Yeah. That's what the Israelis wanted. The great irony is Hamas wanted a permanent deal, all the hostages for an end to the war. Netanyahu said no, partial deal. Hamas agreed to that too, so they keep moving the goalposts because he doesn't want to end the war, Piers. Matthew Miller, Biden's former State Department spokesman, said recently that when he spoke to Netanyahu last year, Netanyahu said openly, we're going to be fighting for decades in Gaza.
Today's show is brought to you by Oxford Natural, makers of the Optimum Day and Optimum.
Jonathan's military, the same military that killed 15 paramedics in April,
they were shot
and then
by
just buried
Hamas,
them with their ambulances in the sand. They were buried in the sand by the Israeli military in April. They lied, the Israelis. They said, oh, the lights were off. We didn't know who they were. Hamas were firing. Turned out all to...
I remember that.
Assessed that the camera was operated by Hamas because Hamas has been operated. They have. I don't remember.
This guy made me sleepy with his lying. I gotta like close my eyes and listen to him like the bullshit. See what the people in the comments say. Let it load. This war needs to fucking stop. I just don't like the kids. They're creating more terrorists. Like the kids gonna be like, damn, they killed my uncle, my aunt, my father, my mother. People they knew, their neighbors, their teachers, they wouldn't want to kill. I have concluded as a viewer that Pierce was indeed part of the problem. He was. You said, but what about Israel? Don't they have a right to? I truly believe if someone televised 6 dogs saying it would get more attention from global leaders. Why is the IDF the only source of information? Allow independent journalists to investigate. They don't allow independent journalists in Gaza. That's stupid. They literally control the food, the water, and the press seeing it. Kind of like how Hitler did when he controlled the press and what people were seeing and said, look, they got food and things they locked up, but they living. When he was really putting people in the gas chamber to figure out different ways to try to kill them faster. Yes, Pierce, you're right. We, the viewers, have decided you are the problem. Pierce, you need to install a mute feature. Maybe. When is the former prime minister says 6,000 is a small number, then you know that karma has more than enough angels. It's a small number. Like, we're really good at missiles, and we only killed about 100,000, almost 100,000 of them. So, I mean, we could have killed a lot more. Damn, that's a low bar of entry, huh? Let me know what y'all think, man. This shit it's exhausting. Like, share, subscribe. We're gonna talk more about this because these motherfuckers make me. I don't know what it is. It's just draining watching them lie over and over again. Their own people want them out and they switching up on them.